Hello right bags, it's Jade. Welcome to JCraft's second channel, home of Jade PG. Pretty much going to be focusing on grounded and crafty games and farming games. So thanks a lot. I know I've been away a while, but I'm back now. We're going to be making some decent regular content as we get close to 1,000 subs. I am going to be going through all the secrets and items that haven't been added to Grounded today. I've just recently done my Grounded 2022 video on the main channel, and that might be the last one you see on the main channel for a good while. The upcoming update that's going to add the termite hill and a bunch more stuff, that's all going to be covered here on JCraft. Guides, tutorials, gameplay, you name it, I've got it covered. But yeah, with the announcement of some of these new features coming, I thought we'd better revisit all the stuff that I've leaked, shown, previewed and found in the game files previously. So do leave a like, make sure to subscribe and let's go. So not long after Grounded actually first came out, I showed you guys a whole bunch of defense tools and traps that weren't properly added to the game. You could only access these by using a modded cheat software, and so they were never really put into the game fully. A lot of these don't work anymore either. If you try spawning them in or try using some of the codes to get them, they just simply will crash your game. Now, defenses is listed on the upcoming features page for Grounded, so we know that definitely it's still going to be a thing, and this is something that's more likely going to be happening. When? I'm still going to say probably towards the end of the year, when it's maybe close to completion. I still don't expect Grounded to fully release until 2023, and so I reckon that's when we'll start seeing more of this stuff added. So, in a nutshell, we've got to go along with the spike strips and obviously the lure traps. We've got honey traps, we've got ice traps, and we've got a bunch of other things like catapults, slingshots, as well as pebble holders. So although this might be the furthest away, I still think this is the most exciting, being able to set traps for the bugs that are potentially going to be attacking your base. Grounded spoke a lot, Obsidian, about the actual defense mechanisms we'd need to have, that ants would try and get into your base to take your food. But we kind of know now that as long as you build tall enough, so far ants don't really hurt or touch your food stores. We also know from previous interviews that the developers have said they want other creatures, other bugs to come and attack you, especially airborne ones. So there could be an opportunity in the future that we might have wasps or hornets or the mosquitoes come in to attack your base, pretty much in a horde style mode. And I can't wait. I think that will really add and flesh out Grounded a lot more, as it does get a bit stale once you've done the more basic stuff in the game. So catapults being able to fling players left, right and centre in a more good direction rather than just up and down like the spider bouncers do. That could be really exciting and mix up how we traverse and get around the map. Pretty much everything you're seeing here I'm sure is going to change how it looks and stuff. Obviously the slingshot turret here, I'm guessing that would have been firing pebbles maybe. It's just a chair at the moment, but obviously expect that to be very different eventually when it does launch or something along them lines. Now we've got the pebblet dumper. Now originally I thought this was some sort of trap, that it would maybe drop pebbles onto enemies down below, but it probably or more likely is just a way for you to hold your pebbles so that you can go ahead and use them for later building. Then we've got something called the plasma orb. Now this, again, I couldn't really get it to work very well. It would just fire off electricity back in the day, and you can go and check out this video that I did ages ago to see it all in a bit more detail. But yeah, that could potentially not be arriving until we get electricity. They do want powered buildings or some sort of powered construction, so it does look like we might get electricity or something like that in the game, and maybe this is one of them defense mechanisms that won't work until that's implemented. And then finishing off with tripwire bombs. So these weren't really working either. The bugs would just pretty much run over them and not actually have anything happen. But I'm hoping we'll see better use of these added in future. When you could go ahead and place some of the ice traps, it just needed water. So there needs to be a way to make that cold. And that's why I think we will see some sort of cold or snow biome added. Maybe, like I said, an upturned fridge, freezer or refrigerator. That can maybe be the option. Or maybe you've got to leave it overnight somehow in something that you can create, like a cold box yourself. And the honey trap, them two pebbles that basically are the ice and honey traps. The honey just needed honey to be made. So we've got nectar in the game, but I'm not 100% sure if we've got full blown honey. If I haven't been to the actual beehive in a long time. So yeah, maybe they're going to add more of that, or maybe it'll be something different. So moving on to weapons and armours, and one of the first things that stands out is a sword called the Dragonfly Slayer, and it's made out of steel gum and maybe like a bee stinger, so clearly that's changed. Steel gum could be a thing because we've now got gum in the game. That obviously got added as part of the Hot and Hazy update, but it does seem a bit weird making a sword out of gum, even if you do somehow make it hardened. The idea that it's called Dragonfly Slayer is really cool as well, so that could potentially mean dragonflies are added to the game eventually, but there's been absolutely no other record of that at all. Then we've got the berry skin and the ant boxing gloves, so kind of for unarmed builds, and this is the only pictures we'd seen of them, but we've never actually seen them in the flesh. I couldn't actually get them spawning properly. I've always thought there's a few perks that we can get that really suit maybe boxing gloves or unarmed combat, so yeah, I can't wait if we do get these added eventually. Now, something that went missing from the actual full build was the harpoon gun. We expected to get this with the pond update, but it didn't actually drop, and there's two variations of it. You've got the harpoon gun, then you've got the tactical version, which pretty much just has the bioluminescent goop on it to basically have a light or torch. Now this actually worked, it was quite fun to use, if a bit weird in the animations, again it hadn't been finished clearly, but yeah, I always felt like this was maybe going to go in the pond update, but I think they changed it. I think originally we might have been needed to kill the koi fish, but instead we got the scales from other means, so maybe it's going to be safe for this second area of the pond. We also know that striders weren't added to it either, and so we know that they're going to be there at some point as well, so that could be something that all gets added in a second pond update, or that adds to the flower bed pond. They did do quite a fair bit of damage, and there was 3 different variations of the actual harpoon. You had like venom, normal, and then bone, so it felt very fleshed out, so I was surprised not to see it actually drop. Given all the changes with spicy and salty, with the variations that you can apply now to all your weapons, it'd be good to revisit this, I guess, and then be able to add them variations again for maybe more water creatures. Because apart from the diving bell spiders, there isn't really anything else that troubles you too much. Like, you don't often get killed by a bunch of the water gnats. Another really interesting one was the boomerang. Now it's just a blade here, obviously they hadn't actually done the art, but you can see the blade coming back and spinning. That could easily be a yo-yo. Both were really big in the 90s, or the time setting that Grounded is kind of from, so it could be an addition we'll see. Obviously, like everything else, they may have abandoned the idea, they might have not liked the idea of boomerangs actually being in the game after all, but I kind of like it. I kind of hope it does come back. Another curious one was the wizard's hat. This was shown briefly in the trailer for the Doom and Troom update, but then it didn't actually come out. It wasn't actually included as part of it. We know it originally is a marksman's cap that's just been retextured or reskinned, so I'm guessing it wasn't ready in time. Now magic might be a bit too much of a weird thing in Grounded, so maybe it's going to be actually just a bit more scientific, or it'll give you some sort of ability. Obviously that isn't direct magic, but they're simply calling it a wizard's hat. We'll go over the new creatures in a little while, but the strider legs are meant to be a way for you to basically skim across the top of water. And originally they were included in making things like flippers, the harpoon gun, the diving knife, and even the bone diving knife, but that seemingly changed. Also, a more recent one, we know there's a tier 3 axe coming. In fact, the tier 3 axe has been in the game a while, but it's never actually had some art for it, and now we know it's going to be made out of termite parts. And it looks like we'll also be making a chest piece out of termite parts as well. And then we've got the mantis parts, so there's going to be a mantis helmet, there's also going to be a mantis scythe. Not too clued up on the hammer tier 3, maybe that is already in the game but just renamed as something else from the Hot and Hazy update. And then in bombs we've got the ant confuser, so again we're not too sure if that's part of the pheromone sort of broadcaster, but yeah, it does look like it is going to be just a bomb to confuse ants. And then rounding it up, you can see we've got the leaf blower as well. No idea what it's going to actually look like. Back in the day, it was a leaf clover that you could use to swing at creatures and clearly not do much damage. So it's clearly going to be some sort of reversal item eventually when it gets added in, I'm guessing. I always actually thought it could be like a backpack item that could maybe make you go further if you had a glider on you, or could just give you a way to actually float around the air a little bit more. Okay, and now we're on to creatures, and one of the best examples is actually hornets on the splash screen of Grounded. These are actually hornets, not wasps. So these would probably make the addition for base defenses, where you'd have to actually have stuff lined up, not just to protect yourself from ants or other creatures on the ground, but actually airborne creatures. And that's something that they've said they wanted to do. They wanted the bees mechanics to be there, because they're going to be using the mechanics of flight, creatures in flight, to work out how the creatures will attack your bases in the future. So yeah, I think these are hornets, and a lot of people agree. It just doesn't have the same sort of shape as actual wasps. But you know, there's a little bit slight possibility it could be a wasp and not hornets. Next one's technically not a creature, but it's actually a stage. Pupa hide is where a bug goes from being a sort of baby bug when it's cocoon into a fully grown adult creature, or just that in period in between. So maybe that's what we're seeing with the new picture of the termite. You can see on the right hand side it looks very different from the actual mites we've seen in the developer diaries recently. So have they just remodeled it because it looked too close to ants, or is this a case of being like the pupa stage of it? And circling back to the Striders, this is the only known footage that we've actually got of the Striders. Not many people have any clips of this because they changed and removed the water dev world, so you couldn't access it, and that was the last time anyone's been able to spawn these guys in, as far as I'm aware. So I'm sure they'll change. Although I said that about the mosquitoes, and they kept the mosquito models, they only changed the colours of them slightly, but these are what the Striders are meant to look like. I guess they're meant to sit on top of the actual lily pads. So I could see them being added to this second pond eventually. Now I have already done one last video on my main channel talking about the future of Grounded for 2022, so I don't really want to go over all that stuff too much, but I have got a bit more details about what I think they're going to work on next in terms of the biomes, what kind of updates you can expect, and maybe when we're going to see them. But yeah, here's just the pond itself, and I reckon it needs a boss. There needs to be a special boss fight somewhere in here, or something pretty special like that. And easily the most unusual creature we'll see in Grounded, possibly killer berries. Maybe they don't actually plan to add this, but can you imagine if berries started just jumping around and munching on you? Obviously at the moment now, moving on to items, we've got the placeholder for the coziest meter. I've been mentioning this a bunch of times now. Valheim, Rust, loads of other games have bonuses when you've got a campfire or base built, and it seems like Grounded's going to have the same sort of thing where you get some sort of health bonus or recuperation bonus. What's interesting though, there is a meter for it, so that's pretty cool. So it looks like we are going to be actually getting better bonuses or buffs if we've got certain pieces of furniture in our homes or bases built in a certain way. And again, they're using a placeholder piece of machinery. They used this for the grinder before it actually turned into the grinder itself, and now it's in place of the pheromone broadcaster. So something to lure creatures out. Maybe that's how we have to activate the queen boss fight in the future. And of course we do know there is a black ant queen coming into the game at some point as well, and that's more than likely got to be another boss fight. So that would be 3 major boss fights plus the mini boss fight in the assistant manager, so that's shaping up to be good. And maybe to help with the decorations and the coziness, we are going to have rugs. We've seen the bee rugs in the past and these mite rugs as well. They're pretty large at the moment, so obviously they're going to be resized and redone, I reckon, in the future. And although they're already in the game, we are seeing changes made to the armor stand, so they'll be able to do poses soon. Also, once upon a time in the game files, there was a compass that you could either add, or I don't know if it was a compass you'd be able to pick up. Doesn't seem like you really need it because the map is fairly easy to navigate. It's hard to really get lost. But yeah, it could be something they finalise and get in the game alongside Polaroid pictures. And just finishing off a couple of resources like the cottontails. This is what they used to look like. They were never added, and it looks like they've maybe abandoned an idea possibly, as they did seem quite big and chunky, and it'd be hard to get if they was on top of the plants themselves like I'm showing you here. And I think that is everything that they've either shown us or I've shown you guys by leaking some of this stuff early or getting into the codes that we know about so far. Obviously there's more to come, I'm sure, lots that may have never appear. It may just be jettisoned and really not good enough, or they changed it or went a different direction, or maybe we'll see it much more fleshed out like we've seen so many of the other items. If there's anything I've missed out at all, do let me know in the comments section and let me know what you're most excited about the possibilities of seeing in the game. Go and check out my Grounded 2020 video on the main channel and all my previous Grounded content, but also look out some brand new fresh guides for 2022 and all the updated content that's incoming. Until next time, rat bags, laters.